No, man, but you got to keep going. What am I going to do, quit? That's not an option. You got to keep on keeping on. Life's a garden, dig it? You make it work for you. You never give up, man. That's my philosophy.
Hey gardeners, I hope you all have had a really wonderful week. Last week I showed you our small soft neck garlic patch that we have growing in the alleyway gardens. So I thought I would take you out this week real quick here to show you all of our hard neck garlic that we've got tucked away here in our front yard micro farm. And look at all of those little heads of garlic that are snug in there for the winter time, set and ready to go here as the first crop of our 2024 season. So, all right, let's get growing. All right, everybody. Welcome, gardeners, to this week's Let's Get Growing LiveCast here on the Urban Gardener channel. And welcome to everybody here. I'm hoping that everything's going all right with our audio and all of that. It seems things to be a little bit different on my side here. So let me know if you can all hear me. But again, welcome here to our live stream this week here on the Urban Gardener channel. In fact, I'm really wondering about whether or not you guys can hear me. So hopefully that's the case. And hopefully I could hear everything else, because things seem to have gone wonky right here very last moment. So okay, Jay says all okay. Perfect. Okay. Anyways, thank you all so much for joining me with me here this week here on the Urban Gardener channel for our Let's Get Growing live here this week. We have joining with us here, hopefully in just a little bit here, our featured guest, Steve List. Steve is a garden educator at Sylmar High School in Sylmar, California. He has a really awesome ag department there, as well as is a presenter and garden educator throughout the Los Angeles area. Steve is just a really, really awesome guy, and really emphasizes something we like to talk about a lot here on our show and our channel is garden education. So we're going to dig in with all of that with him here in just a little bit later. So stay tuned for that conversation coming up. And also, again, you also be sure to give us a big thumbs up there, hit the like button and the subscribe button if you haven't subscribed to the channel already. In fact, hit the bell notification so you can be notified of our upcoming shows. And be sure to share with all of your garden friends as well too. And check us out at Let's Get Growing Live. And you can find all of our information about the show and all of that on our website. Also, big, huge shout out right here at the top of the show to all of you who are watching our replay. We get a lot of views through replay, and I just want to acknowledge all of you right here at the top of the show for joining with us here this week. And just get down in the comment section. Let me know you're here. Let me know what you think of the show, any questions or comments or anything like that. And if you are watching the replay for this show this week, be sure to join with us this next week. We're going to talk about that here as well too, coming up. IV Organics, use our promo code GROW10, GROW10, to get 10% off in their shop there, and a great way to support our show. is to support our sponsors. So go check out IV Organics at ivorganics.com. And if you have any questions or comments or anything like that, please, I'd love to hear from you, and love to get some questions from you as well too, especially during our interview segment with our guest. So be sure to jump into the comment section there and ask any questions you might have as well too. And awesome. So really great week. I hope you all have been having a really awesome week. And as I was just mentioning there, talking about all of our replay watchers, I want to make sure that I invite all of you who are watching our show to join with us this next week, which will be basically our last show of the year. And kind of a real quick schedule rundown and what we've got going on for the Let's Get Growing show as we are ending 2023. Can you believe it? 2023 is already over, man. It's really kind of hard to believe. It was just seemed like yesterday we were all excited about the year getting started and getting our show started. And I remember, it was just really an exciting time of year this last coming out of last winter and going into this last year in 2023, and it's hard to believe it's already over. So this will be our last guest show. So this will be the last show that we feature a guest here, if our guest shows up here for the interview. So hopefully he'll be here just a little bit too, and we'll get him on the show and talk and have an interview here. But this will be our last guest interview show of the year. And then next year we're going to do, or next week, we're almost there. It's almost there. We're almost next year. But next week, what we're going to kind of do, it'll be just kind of a rundown show. We're going to talk about the best of the year, and then kind of talk about what we'll be looking forward to in this next year. And just kind of a heads up, that will be kind of our last show of 2023. And then we will take a break for a couple of weeks on the show. And then after that, we will resume some live streams in the coming weeks towards and through kind of winter, towards late winters, before we get started with next season's rundown of shows. We're booking guests and getting people ready to get started with this next year. We got some changes coming up we'll talk about next week on our rundown show for 2023, and kind of go over all of that sort of stuff there too. So that kind of give you an idea of what to be looking for as we get moving here into winter time. It's kind of time for a little bit of a break. We've had a really wonderful year. It's been awesome. Gardening has been great. Everything grew so much better than what I was expecting, and got so much better outcomes than what I was anticipating from how I got started. So it's really going to be kind of fun to see how we can carry some of those successes and some of those things that we had this year right into our next season, as we'll be jumping right in and getting to work on all of that sort of stuff too. But again, I need just a short little bit of a break, and so that's what we're going to do. And just a little heads up on that too. So be sure to join with us next week for sure for the live show. I'd love to see all of you. I'd love to hear from all of you as we talk about our year and talk about the things that we've got going on next year, and catch up with all of you guys, and kind of just kind of get ready for this whole new year coming up here. I think it's going to be just an even better year than last year. So, and it's a really good thing too. There were some really tough years there, for a little while, and so it's really kind of great to really kind of come off a really good year and look towards the next year with such great anticipation. And again, I want to welcome and thank all of you again for joining with me here. We've got with us again, big huge shout out to Jay moderating our comments section there. Jay, taking care of all of that, putting in our links and everything like that. So huge shout out to Jay. Big thumbs up for him as well. Rob's Allotment Gardening again joining with us. Awesome. I see Connie's in here. Connie, great to see you. Awesome. Oh, looks like Charles from Ivy Organics, as we were mentioning. Check out our links down below in the description for Ivy Organics. And as I mentioned, you could use our promo code GROW10, GROW10, get 10% off there, huh, Charles? We get some of that Ivy Organics 3-in-1, all of their great stuff they've got there. That's really awesome. And let's see here. So that's who I see here in our comments section. So again, really, really awesome to see all of you here. And again, too, we just passed the winter solstice, so that's really awesome too right now. So again, kind of that idea, like I was saying, it's wintertime, and wintertime's great because we do kind of need a break. I think that's I think that's one of the best things about wintertime is it does kind of remind us that we do kind of need a break. We do need to kind of slow down a little bit, kind of get ourselves re-energized in a sense for the next season, and especially for us gardeners. And I'll guarantee you, if you're really a gardener like myself, or you really love growing, we don't take much of a break when it comes to wintertime. And in fact, the break I'm talking about for the show here is more so a break from actually, just sitting here live with all of you and planning and doing certain things when it comes to preparing and getting ready for the show and all of that. Is just kind of a short little break from that, because I'll be in the background working on a bunch of other things again as we're looking towards doing some other things. I've got seeds and seed catalogs and all of that sort of stuff as I'm starting to plan out all of my garden spaces. Just really, really, again, important time of year as well too, for us to be able to kind of slow down, kind of sit with the results of our last year, and be able to look at some of those things that we're going to grow, check our checklist for all the things that we want to make sure we're growing, and then also toss in some new stuff as we're exploring our seed catalogs and finding all of these other really cool things to grow, and adding those to our gardening spaces. And so I've got a lot of that going on myself right now. So we're planning out a lot of different things. Again, it just seems like my spaces and my garden projects and things like that seem to expand year after year. And that just seems to be the case. But again, having a lot of fun with all of it. I'm really looking forward to some of the things that we get to do here. And I'm just really glad also that it is winter solstice time right now. Winter is finally here. And I think one of the best things, besides the break and the ability to get started in planning towards next year, is just the fact that it's here. And that means that the days are going to start getting longer from now. This is, the shortest day of the year is past now, and now the days are going to start getting longer again, and we're going to be moving that much closer to this next spring and this next growing season. So yeah, really looking forward to that. And looking forward to seeing what we can what we can accomplish in this next year. And again, just one of those kind of things I always look keep in mind. I compare gardening sometimes to baseball. Baseball is probably one of my favorite other I don't know, I guess you'd say hobbies. I don't know. It's just something I've enjoyed my whole life. I've been a big, huge baseball fan, and I think we look at those very similar in a way in kind of seasons, and every time one season ends, that means we're that much closer to the next season starting. You know what I mean? And no matter what happened in the season before, there's always a new season to look forward to, and all those sort of things that come along with it as well too. So I kind of like that comparison, when you think about those two things and how that kind of works, because it's very true. I've had years where, in the garden, in previous years where nothing seemed to work out. It was one of those just terrible, terrible seasons. You're losing to everybody, just at the bottom of the the bottom of the standings, and it's just, but we trudge along through the year. We do the best we can with what we've got, all of that sort of thing. And then we watch everybody else, with all of their great harvests, basically all the other teams in the playoffs and all of that at the end of the year. And then, we get to this time of year, like I was saying, winter time. It's now time for us to look forward to next season. And I can't wait to get that started as well, too. So, again, all of the seed catalogs are showing up in the mail. I'm getting more and more of them. I think I was just looking through before the show, looking through the free Baker Creek catalog that actually just showed up. I was seeing so many other people getting theirs. I was like, when's mine going to be here? When am I going to see mine? But yeah, it just showed up. So I was flipping through that before the show. So many great things. Like I was saying, there's things popping up now of newer and different varieties. One of the things with having such an established garden like I've got over the years now too, there's a lot of mainstay crops and mainstay things that I'm growing each and every year that really, takes up most of the space that I have, because those things have become successful for me each and every year. Those are the things I use the most. Those are the things that grow the best for me, those varieties and those things that grow the best for me. And so I've taken some of those things in each different type of crop, and kind of established those in my garden spaces. So those mainstays really take up a lot of space. But again, when we start seeing our new catalogs and these different varieties of things that we haven't seen before, it starts creating those possibilities. We got to start nudging things over and finding and different spaces that we can start putting new things into, because we want to add newer crops and try new things. And some pictures are just too dazzling for us to resist, and we just have to get those seeds and give them a try. So again, we've got to make room in some of our established gardens for some of those things as well too, because I'm seeing a lot of really great things that I want to give a try this next year. So yeah, definitely. And this is about the time, like I was saying, that we would have our guest on right now. I'm wondering whether or not our guest, Mr. List, is having issues with joining with us, maybe technology or something like that. So we're going to give him a few more minutes here for sure to see if he joins in with us. If he joins in with us, we'll connect with him when that happens. But other than that, I guess we're just kind of hanging out for right now. If you got any questions for me, I have a question for you all real quick here that are joining with me at the moment too. What are some of those things, that's, I don't know, I guess we could go two ways with this question, because as I was kind of talking about it, what are maybe, let's just start with this. What are some of those things that you're growing that are kind of established in your garden? Some of those things that, whether, of course we got perennials. Perennials are going to be established. They're going to be growing in their space year after year. But what are some of those annuals? Some of those things you're growing from seed, some of those sort of things like that, that have become mainstays in your garden? How about that? Let's get a conversation started here while we're waiting for our guest to join in with us. And I will actually talk about as well too. I Last week I kind of showed this at the beginning. We start with our little outside in the garden kind of introduction to the show. I kind of do a little outdoor piece or some sort of piece kind of showing that. And last week we showed you kind of like our little soft neck garlic patch that I've got outside here in our alleyway garden. We used to grow like all of our garlic here, just in all sorts of spaces and places, but now it's in the last couple of years has just kind of relegated itself down to like this small little patch of just soft neck garlic. And man, I really actually I want to say this too real quick and jump in. uh, um, the soft neck garlic I saw this, I was at this market, and they this organic market, and they just had these massive, and I haven't seen soft neck garlic that was this big before. These bulbs were huge for a soft neck variety of garlic, so I snagged up a couple of those for sure. Because we've had plenty of garlic, and actually really a lot more than what I could use in the past years, until I started growing with my friend, and now we're growing, for this micro farm project we're doing and all of that. So we've kind of moved our garlic grow over there, and we've been kind of growing this hard neck variety that I got from viewer Nancy sent these to me a few years back. And now I got more than I know what to do with when it comes to it, because as you can see, this week's introduction, I went over to the micro farm space that we're growing over at my friend Mike's place. And last year I think we grew maybe, I think 70, I think was kind of the number. I think we grew like 70 heads of garlic last year, and we had all of this garlic, and he really really loved how much garlic we grew. He loved the whole watching the garlic and that project and all that sort of stuff come to fruition all the way to harvest. And so I we had all of this all these cloves, all the seed, and we separated the biggest and the best ones from all of the garlic that we harvested, and we ended up with all of this massive amount of seed garlic. We had over 300 cloves. And so what we did is we took the middle space this time. Instead of just a simple couple of rows of garlic, we just packed them into this space. And as you can see, they're all popping up now. They're all out, maybe a couple of inches now, and which is really great to see and really kind of cool. But I've never grown so much garlic in my life. But it's really great. It's an awesome variety, and hopefully we're going to be able to do some things with it this next year. But it's really kind of cool to see it popping up out of the ground. All right, and as well too, in the space that I am growing the soft neck garlic. Those spaces, and then again, like I was saying, in a few other kind of little patch spaces around the alleyways, I've been growing the hard neck varieties, the soft neck varieties, and also elephant garlic as well too. Elephant garlic is actually one of my favorite garlics. And just a note real quick, a lot of people don't realize or know that elephant garlic, though it grows like garlic, you know what I mean? And it separates itself. I mean, it looks just like a hardneck garlic. It produces the scape and everything just like a hardneck garlic would. And you would think with all of those features that it would actually be a garlic. But, it's more closer in the allium family to a leek than it is a garlic, which is really, really weird. When I learned that years ago, and still today, in some reason, I know there's some genetic reasons that they point to as proof, but I'm like, you know what? It grows like a garlic. It's called elephant garlic for a reason, because it looks like a garlic. So but again, I guess, they say it's closer genetically to a leek, and I'll just kind of have to believe what they say when it comes to that. The people who know better than I do, in a sense. But I do love really growing elephant garlic. Elephant garlic is really, really great. But here's the issue. When we moved over and started growing, in fact, I didn't grow garlic. I had, again, like I was saying, I had so much garlic from the years before. I took a break from growing garlic in all of the spaces here for one season, and that was the season before last. And then last season, we grew the hardneck variety of garlic in the space, in my friend's space. And then this year we're growing everything again here and there as well. But we took that break, and I kind of regret it a little bit, because I was out in this other organic market the other day, and not the other day, but several weeks ago, and was looking for some elephant garlic so that we could get some seed and start growing it again. And again, we just go look in an organic section of our markets. It could be even one of our regular general markets, grocery stores that we normally go to. I just go to the organic section, whether it's regular garlic, which is usually a soft neck garlic that you're going to find there, and elephant garlic. A lot of stores will feature that as well too. So I get that organic elephant garlic, but I saw this elephant garlic, and it was $10 a pound for the elephant garlic. And that, when I saw that $10 a pound, that's what I was like really regretting. I was like, man, there's no reason why we should really be buying this, because I was growing it in a continuous cycle for years in this garden space. I took a break from 1 year and didn't have any seed for the next year, didn't grow it then. So we took basically a 2-year break from growing it, and saw that it was $10 a pound in the market. So that was kind of a real surprise. But again, really, but I did get, so I just started with one bulb. I was like, because my plan was, when I got the market, I was going to get a couple of them and really grow several. But ultimately, I just got one bulb. The bulb itself, I think, was just a little over $5. I think it was almost between $5 and $6 was what that one bulb was. So it was just a little bit over half a pound. And we got 6 really good cloves off of that. And I planted those next to our soft neck variety of garlic that we've got growing in that space here in our alleyway spaces. Okay, let me catch up with everybody real quick here. Oh, Jay's here with our question. Garlic and rhubarb are mainstay plants in my community garden plot, but I extend the season for carrots, Swiss chard, and kale. Oh, yes. Excellent. Yeah. In fact, I was just out in my back space. I harvested up a bunch of the carrots that I had growing in this box that I have. And I harvested a bunch up weeks ago, and I left some behind, but I haven't been back in that space. I've been I've been so busy with some other things. I'm like, I'll get to it. And so I was just kind of needling around in that area, looking for something, back there and realized that I still had some carrots to pull up out of the soil. And that's kind of one of the cool things, is just kind of leave them there till you want them, kind of thing, because I was pulling out some really nice fresh carrots right out of there that have just been kind of hanging out and sitting in there in those boxes, kind of chilling out in our really cool weather that we got right now. So I pulled out a few more carrots, and I think I got a few more left to go. I'm going to go out and grab probably here in the next day or so, and kind of get the rest out of that box there. And then yeah, we got some, in fact, we got some, I saw as well, some kale was actually looking really good right now that we have out there. There's just a couple of plants that kind of popped up and volunteered out of plants that we grew the season before. A lot of what we've got growing back there right now, there's a few different varieties of some lettuces that kind of popped up and grew. A couple that I actually planted out and harvested just a few weeks ago, most of them. And then there's still a few left over of some different varieties of lettuces that we've got out there. The one thing I'm not noticing anywhere, and I've been trying to really get established, but I didn't notice any growing anywhere, spinach. So I really want to make sure that it's one of my favorite greens. I love spinach, but I was hoping to find some in the space out in our back there. I did get some, though, while I was over at the micro farm, because I don't know, if you look on the other side there in the video from the introduction of the show where I showed you all of the garlic, on the other plot there too is spinach that's growing. It's just kind of seeding itself. So it's all this spinach that seeded itself from this last year's crop. And there was just a lot of really delicious fresh leaves on those plants in there. So I had to go and pick some off and bring some home with me from there as well. But I wish there was some in my spaces that I had. So I'm gonna have to make sure that we do get some growing there as well too. Let's see here. Oh, and I think Connie was mentioning something about lettuce as well too. Let it go to seed, and it reseeds itself. Spring onions, garlic chives, garlic planted clemon. I'm not sure. Oh, what is seeds? And now they keep popping up. Ooh, yeah. Some plants like that. There's so many things that I just each and every year, and it's luckily I'm familiar enough, and if you got those sort of plants growing in your garden, be sure, definitely, but being familiar with how and what they look like when they're small, sprouting up, because you get some varieties that they start popping up, and I've got several different plants that are just constant volunteers. You know what I mean? You just can't you just can't keep them back. And I got several of those things that I've got to basically, treat as weeds, because I've got plenty of other things to be growing in some of my spaces. But it's nice to see volunteers. I've had actually a couple of really cool volunteer stories this year too. I love volunteers in the garden. Let's see, Rob was saying that he has not planted any garlic yet. Oh, where you're at there, though, too, are you going to be able to get garlic in the ground this year? That would be my question. Let's see here. And Connie was saying, I love my surprise plants. I hope you get some you love. Yeah, exactly. Because that's just what I was saying. I do love my volunteers, my surprise plants. And I don't know if you saw the show. I think it was a few weeks back. I was talking about my patch that I have out in the alleyway. It's where I grow actually some corn. I was growing some squash. I had a bunch of these new flowers that were growing in the space. There were a couple of other things too, as well too, that we just had a bunch of things growing in this space, and I had them all just growing really well. Every time I walked by, it looked good, so I didn't pay much attention to it growing throughout the year, other than just giving it a side glance, just to make sure everything was looking good. So I didn't notice throughout the whole season that growing in all of the stuff that was growing there was some potato plants from some potatoes that I left behind probably from the season before, that I grew in that area. So I think that's kind of what I did though too, if I think about it, was when I took a break from growing the garlic in that area, I planted a bunch of potatoes in those spaces to kind of see how well they would do. And so I grew potatoes there, harvested them last year, and then I think that last year, um, when I harvested them, I must have left a couple of little ones behind, which is just really kind of seems to always happen with potatoes. So a couple of little potatoes got left behind, and those became new seeds for new potato plants that grew in the space. And mind you, I didn't even see the whole plants or anything. The leaves and everything died back along with everything else that was there, the squash plants and all of that. As all that stuff died back, and I just kind of pulled it all up and cleared the space. And it wasn't until I started digging in the space, getting ready to prep the ground for our garlic, that I noticed that there were potatoes in the soil. And I'm not talking about just like little potatoes and one or two of them or anything. I'm talking about a really good harvest of a couple of pounds of potatoes, and a couple of just really decent, nearly softball sized ones too. A red variety, and I think it was a yellow variety of potato that I grew in those from year before. But how about that? Just total surprise. I mean, there it was. I didn't even expect that at all, and I pulled out and harvested a couple of pounds of potatoes that were just a complete surprise. And that was just one of my favorite kind of volunteer stories from this last year. Okay, let's see. I think Jay's asking Rob. Okay. That's one thing I love about trying to go through and catch up with the comment section. Sometimes I got to make sure sometimes you're talking with each other as well too. Connie says her perennials are oregano, sage, thyme, comfrey. Yes, some good herbs and all of that. I've got my herb garden, which is really kind of getting good and established finally this year. As you know, I've been growing herbs in different spaces and places, but a couple of seasons ago, I decided to take this space I've gotten it, and I keep pointing right here, but it's actually just right outside the house right behind me where I'm at. But we've got this space there where we've got this larger bush that grows and helps kind of provide some shade during the hotter part of the season as well too. So it's kind of perfect for a really cool kind of herb garden, to almost be kind of a landscape garden in a way too, utilizing these perennial herbs and these different things in order to kind of create kind of a nice cool landscape look around this larger bush. And so I've got a bunch of those too that are really growing well and doing good even in this time of year right now. Actually, again, as I was checking things the other day, I was thinking about how I need to expand some of our herbs and put in some different kinds of some things and fill in some kind of gaps in a way too. As well as the herbs, there are some kind of summer flowers, some lilies, canna lilies, and some different things, some hostas, and what else? I'm trying to think of it. But we got a couple of other types of plants that kind of grow in as well through that space and kind of fill up some spaces. So there's a couple of holes in there that I want to kind of fill out and add some more new kind of perennial herbs in that space. Connie said that she has 2 tubs of spinach going. Right on. Yeah, exactly. I love spinach. That's just, one of the things I really was slacking on when it came to, and really to tell you the truth, we do have so much coming up out of the micro farm plot that I have plenty, but I kind of like having it around my spaces here, just kind of like right out your door. That's one of the best things about having a garden local at home, localized at your home, especially good kitchen gardens. We call them kitchen gardens because they're right, outside the door of your kitchen, and right there, so you can just go right out the door, pick what you need, and take it right into the kitchen from there. That's really good to have. And so I'd like to have some spinach just right out here. I could grab and all of that, and I don't have to drive, because where we have the micro farm space is actually um, is I'm trying to think here, 3 miles, I would say, 3-4 miles drive from here. So yeah, I'd say about 3 or 4 miles. It's not very far, but still gotta, get in the car, you gotta cruise over, go get it, and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, so it'd be cool. Oh, and Jay asked a good question of Connie there, real quick. Let's see here. Any tips about spinach growing? Are they indoors or outdoors? Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, I'd love to hear what Connie has in the comment section as far as tips. We can kind of talk about that in a moment here. Real quick as well, too. Jay says, kitchen gardens are the best for side dishes for meals. Yeah. Again, too, just best to have it right there, right outside your door and all of that. Spinach, I've grown tons and tons of spinach, and spinach is really one of those ones that really thrives. And that's why, again, too, I'm really kind of bummed I don't have any in my space here. We got, like I said, we got plenty over in our other spaces that I have. But um, spinach, again, great cool weather crop. And some of my first couple of gardens, and this is kind of, again, kind of coming back to that weather change type of conversation that we've had here plenty of times, because I've seen so much difference in the climate from when I first started gardening here in the Rogue Valley, Southern Oregon. um, let's see, so again, 12 plus years ago. So the changes from that, those first couple of gardens that I grew in, our winters were really, really lots of precipitation, and a lot of snow. I remember when I had a job where when the snow really started coming down heavy, we had to make sure that we were keeping our walkways nice and clean and open for people to, make sure that they were safe. So I remember tons and tons of shoveling snow. And that's just something we don't do anymore here. I have not shoveled snow or thought about it even out here. I mean, just right here in this walkway that I have in my front house, front of the house here, we used to have to shovel and keep kind of clear throughout the winter times. And again, I haven't had to do that for a good, I don't know, it's been a good 6-7 years maybe or more that it's been since I've had to do that. But those first several winters that I lived here, we had really good winter times. And I remember the spinach that I was growing in those first couple of gardens that I was growing here. I remember going out and after a snow and just being really worried. I'm like, oh, I think that's got to kill all of my plants. That's got to kill them for sure. And I would go and push away the snow off of where I knew that, because it was just completely white. So I had to guess, or remember where the plants were underneath. And so, I dig in there and push the snow away, and those plants were just happy as clams down in there. Not a problem at all. I mean, just really, they were loving it. And really, when it's nice and cool like that, it makes them crisper, it makes them sweeter, just tastier even too. So really, it's one of those things that if you are growing spinach and you get, some of those cooler weather or even like that snow like that around them, I think it makes them even taste even better. But I was surprised. I was a new gardener as far as those sort of crops were concerned, so I didn't know what to expect. When we had that kind of weather, that for one, I thought maybe the snow had just really crushed the plants, maybe more so than the cold, affecting the plants much. Because I knew of them being cooler weather, but how cold can they take, right? And I've had them really cold, like freezing nights, and then they just kind of, it seems like they just kind of thaw out with everything else and seem to do just fine. So, really great cool weather crop. So I grow from my area. I grow them coming through winter, spring, and get them started again in the fall. Except for, again, I didn't get any started for these spaces, but we had all of our seeds from the crops that we planted in the spring over in the micro farm. All of those had went to seed because, that's one of the things. They're a cool weather crop, and they are going to they're going to go to seed as soon as there's any warm weather, as soon as it starts warming up at all. I mean, they love it in the cold, but as soon as the weather starts warming up, some varieties, I mean, it doesn't take much, and they just start shooting right to seed. And even if you're trying to start them from starts, and trying to start over, I've experimented in all different ways with trying to get the timing right on spinach, and it's just really, really impossible in my area, anyways, for me to grow them anytime, mid spring, towards summer is about the end of my spinach season. I mean, there are some varieties I've heard. I haven't tried or had much of these varieties yet grown in my garden that will kind of be a little more heat tolerant. They will last a little bit longer, but even those varieties are going to eventually go to seed when the weather warms up. But the cool thing about those, like I said, in that space in our microfarm area, those ones that went to seed from our spring crop, they go to seed and drop their seed right there, and those just start regrowing again in the fall time. And we've got all new plants growing from seed from the plants in the previous season. So really great crop. Love spinach. It's not hard to grow either. Really, seeds germinate real easy. All of that is just really, again, the biggest downfall with spinach is the fact that they are not very heat tolerant and will go to seed right away when it comes to time when it comes to growing spinach. So loving the spinach. Let's see here. Connie says that hers are outside. I just throw seeds in the container and forget them. It takes forever for them to sprout. Yeah, they are a little bit of a slow sprouter though too. I'll agree with you there. They are kind of a little bit of a slow sprouter, and but really, once they get growing, they're really grow really well though too. Okay, and Jay's asking again too about any special timing for seeding or container soil. Just general soil, whatever you're using for anything else. Timing, again, when it comes down to it, be sure to be growing your plants in the cooler ends of the season. And even here's the thing too is I it's a bit cold, I would say, for seedlings like right now. for me just to go out and put seed out there and try to grow them and expect anything to really kind of sprout or grow if I was to try to grow them. But I could get them started indoors. I could get some spinach seedlings started indoors, but I'm going to want to try to keep them in the coolest part of the house or the coolest place I can, and something that's not freezing but cooler, and it's got some decent light. Get them started in the house until they start growing those first couple of really good true leaves and such. And then if you have any workable soil, again, it just depends on really how cold. I mean, for Jay, I mean, you're in Canada, so it's got to be getting pretty cold. So I mean, if the soil's freezing, it's really just not going to be really conducive to getting them started. You could probably continue growing them in a cooler part of the house, some good light, that sort of thing, indoors. But if you got some, if you can get some decently established small starts and you're not seeing like hard freezes and you got some workable soil, you can always try to get them out there anyways. Because like I said, for me though, in my winters though, and this again then comes down to regions, as I'm saying, and how you're, how cold you're getting, But for me, even with some of our freezes and things like that, my spinach crops seem to just kind of do fine right through most all of that. Connie does say that she does cover them when it gets down into the middle 20s. And she says they do fine at freezing 29 and above. Yeah, but again, any sort of really harder freezes, then I don't know necessarily. My situation's pretty similar. I mean, 29 is going to be a pretty cold overnight for us throughout the winter time here in my region. So if you're dealing with minuses and you're dealing with some really hard frosts and freezes, you might have just even a little bit more extreme conditions for them to kind of to make it through. But again, it's all about trying and seeing what you can do. But that kind of also brings me to kind of something else that is kind of going on at this time of year as well too. As I kind of just touched on that just a little bit, is that we're moving things from a lot of our outdoor growing to things that we're doing indoors right now. I've been over the last week or two working on setting up a couple of things. I've got a light station I use for growing microgreens. And so I grow all sorts of different types of microgreens, including some little spinach greens. But those are the sort of things that we're doing indoors. And like I said, if you've got some spaces in cooler spaces with window and as best of light as you can possibly get, being more of, kind of a south facing situation like that. And you can probably grow most of the different types of greens, lettuces, spinaches, different things like that right there indoors throughout the winter season as well too, especially for those of you who live in those cooler areas. And really, some decent spaces too as well are, especially for places that are really, have some of those harder freezes or some of those kind of side rooms and garages and that sort of thing. If you have windows and things that you can that they can stay away from some of the real heavy freezing temperatures, because a lot of those greens are going to love the even cooler temperatures that you're going to get in some of those spaces. And also our light station as well too. I've got another separate light station that I use to grow for our peppers. So part of our light station that I've got too, which we'll be getting started with here in the next few weeks, another part of the plans and things that I got to be working on over this next week or next week or two is planning and getting some seed varieties and things like that here so that we can get started with our pepper seeds. I get started with those, sometimes the beginning of January, sometimes beginning of February. I think I'm probably going to aim a little bit more towards, right at the beginning of February, maybe right at the first, or just the days before the beginning of February there. And I think that's what we're going to aim for this year to get our pepper growing season started. And we're going to really be aiming for mostly sweet peppers, and again, mostly varieties and things that I'm really going to use. We will, sprinkle in some of those really kind of fun pepper pods and varieties, those ones that are just a little too hot for me to be trying and eating. But again, I do kind of powder them down and kind of make sure that I'm kind of diluting them a little bit and use them in some things and to kind of spice things up a little bit too. So that's kind of how I get some use out of those. But I have a lot of friends who really love some of those hot peppers. And in fact, a real quick side story, my new owner of the property I live in here, who's actually my neighbor as well too, so he gets to walk by a lot of the peppers that we grow off of the back carport area there. And one of the varieties was this, what was it? I'm trying to think what it was. It was, I think it was some sort of scorpion variety of pepper. It was a hot variety. And I remember telling him, and I think it might have been a scorpion, because someone says scorpion, you should be thinking or knowing right at that point in time that this is going to be really, really hot, and he's a younger guy and all that sort of stuff. So I don't know. But I gave him one of the pepper pods and was telling him, hey, I told him the variety, this is such and such scorpion pepper. And before I could even really describe the pepper, he had already just bitten into it. I mean, just bit the whole pod, just ate that thing and started going after it. And my jaw just kind of dropped. I'm like, that's going to be like, and by time before I could even, and now before I could even warn him as I'm trying to tell him about what to expect here, like, this is going to be like very hot. And his eyeballs just got huge, just right as I'm about to open my mouth telling him about how hot it's going to be. And I was like, yeah, it's going to get worse for a few minutes too. And yeah, he couldn't quite believe it. But yeah, so we'll sprinkle some of those type of varieties of peppers in there as well too, because I still love growing all these different cool, that's a great thing again about peppers, just so many amazing cool looking pods and colors and shapes and sizes. And that's just the pods. The plants grow in different shapes and sizes and have different traits and things like that too. So peppers are one of my favorite thing to grow. We get them started really early in the season. So kind of as I was saying at the beginning there with the garlic, that's the kind of the first crop of the 2024 season that we get started in the fall. But right as we break into winter and pass into the beginning of the new year, we get started with our peppers as well too. So that's what our light station, I'm getting all set up and fixed up here, is getting all set up for there. We're getting our heat pads out and all that sort of stuff so that we can get ready to start our pepper grow. And that goes in a 2-stage kind of light system that I've got here as well too. So the peppers get started in the starter trays. We grow out a bunch of different seed so that I can pick the best little starts that I get, and get those the best little plants, the best little starts, and those ones get upgraded and those ones get to move up into the next container, which we just basically use solo cups. And then I've got these kind of racks that we put our cups in that kind of hold them all together, and they get to sit underneath of some lights. And that's where they will grow for those next couple of months, as we're waiting for our first frost date. Around here anymore, I'm pretty comfortable with getting my plants out into the ground a few weeks before our estimated last frost date in our area here. So that's what I'll do. That's going to be somewhere, mid-April. And somewhere right around mid-April, I'm going to start putting all of those out into our garden spaces, whether they're containers or some in-ground spaces, and some of these expanded spaces that I'm going to be talking about again this next week on next week's show. And I guess next week's show is going to be kind of similar to this week's show. I don't know. Maybe we'll try to see if we can get Steve back on. I'm not sure. I'll have to check in with him. Yeah, I see that we've got a message in and all that saying that he's having trouble with logging in. So, yeah. So I guess I will have to get with him and figure out something about technology, and maybe we'll get him on back again this next week, or hopefully we'll make sure that he's one of our top guests for this next season or something as well too. It's really, it's just one of those situations that kind of happens when you're running a live show. In fact, we've had some pretty interesting situations. I mean, if you all have been with me here and remember back to when Nick Federoff was on, in fact, both times we've had kind of issues, but the first time we had a bunch of real issues when it came to technology and all of that. So those sort of issues do happen. This one just seems to be one of those first ones where we're just not having the ability to get logged on at all. So we'll work with him and check on technology for maybe next week's show or another future date. As I said, Steve's a really great guy, man. I just really, really had such a great time hanging out with him and talking about their program that they have at Sylmar Agricultural Department in the Sylmar High School down in Los Angeles there. He's just got a really amazing space that high school has for them and their agricultural department. And also, of course, with what he does with it and with all of these students that they have there. We talk a lot about garden education on this show. We've even had some really young gardeners like Nate, like gardening with Nate and Emmanuel when we had him on too as well. Talking about gardening and garden education, and when I think about that, I think in general, I don't know necessarily what everybody else is thinking about that a lot too. And when we see, again, posts and people talking about these sort of things in our different garden groups and stuff about garden education and having programs in our schools to teach kids about growing food and that sort of stuff, that's what we really are thinking about. And the one thing I really like about the conversation in the angle on education that we discussed with Steve, and you can check the. In fact, I hope I probably should have, and I'm surprised I didn't think about it, but we'll try to get a link down below to the episode that I did with Steve, where we visited with him at that agricultural department at Sylmar High School. You got to check that video out. It's a really great space, really great tour. You can take a look around and see all that sort of stuff, and you'll know exactly what I'm talking about when it comes to that. But the cool part of that discussion about garden education was that he's teaching in a high school, and so we're not thinking about like a young kid's school, which a lot of them I think about is these elementary schools and even up to middle schools, teaching these younger kids about growing, and getting that sort of education instilled in kids at a young age so that they carry on with that as they get even older and all that too. Steve's teaching kids who are a bit older. They're in high school, and they're in this program to learn about not just growing the different things and not just growing food either. What Steve's teaching them about is that there is a whole industry in agriculture. There are tons of jobs There are all sorts of different kinds of jobs that are in agriculture. This isn't just about teaching kids to grow food and how they can grow food for themselves and all of that, which is definitely something that you're learning and getting a part of the program that they're running over at Steve's program there. Yeah, but they're also learning about things that they can do beyond high school when it comes to growing. What are those sort of things that they could um, participate in as far as a job when they get out of high school in some of those fields? Because if they're finding this real fascination right out of high school, right out of this program, being a part of this really wonderful department in the space that they get to learn in, how can they keep with that after high school? And that's through finding some of these different jobs. One of the things that he did show me as an example, um, and really, in high school, he teaches them about growing grapes and growing grapes. He had these cool buckets, and I really still. In fact, I should look back on that and maybe think about that for one of these upcoming seasons. As I'm just now thinking about this as I'm reminding myself, but really cool buckets, almost like a big, large size, like you would think like a barrel, oak barrel type planter buckets, and then with a big pole growing out of it, and it had some sort of thing at the top that they grew all of these grapevines up. But he was teaching them about growing grapes because there's a whole industry of wine out there. And in fact, I was just talking with someone who I know who had got a job at this place. He got a job in the restaurant of this winery that's really local here. And I was telling him, I says, well, one of the things you should do, because he was young as well too. I think he wasn't too far out of high school himself. And on the same sort of line as what Steve's teaching kids, is that there's all sorts of jobs, and especially in the wine industry, which is a you know billions and billion-dollar industry out there. And to learn skills and those sort of things, to learn about those sort of things, to be able to find a career in those sort of fields, can be really life changing for some young people and that sort of stuff too. And that's kind of what I was telling this other young person I was talking to, and saying that, well, I know you're in the restaurant, but they're a winery, and they're growing all these grapes and all of that. I said, if there's any way you can find a way to apprentice or get into learning how to take part in that part of the business of what they're doing there, I says there's just so much you could do, and so many really cool jobs. And for me again too, I'm thinking like all of like I want to be out there growing and learning to tend these grapevines and be a part of that part of the whole industry and stuff. But that's a kind of expanded thought when we think of what we're teaching people and kids, especially when it comes to gardening and growing, is that it's not just hobbies, it's not just growing food for yourself in your own spaces, which we really like to emphasize on my channel and all that, but also there are jobs, there are whole industries and industries within industries when it comes to gardening and growing and agriculture and all that sort of stuff. And I think that's just one of the really cool things that I learned about when I went to the Sylmar Ag department there to interview Steve. I found Steve through an online group. Steve's actually known online. He does a lot of also kind of helping and answering gardening questions, being a gardening educator. And his tagline online is "Ask Mr. List." And so there is a link down below to his Instagram page if you want to check that out, and ask Mr. List. And that's how I got to know him and learn about the things that he was doing. So on one of my trips to Los Angeles, I knew I had to take a little side stop there in I think it's San Fernando Valley there. Pacoima and those areas. But Sylmar stop off in Sylmar there and go visit Steve. And really, it was wonderful. It was awesome. It was probably one of my favorite parts of that particular visit, was getting to see that whole program and what they're doing there. And it was also graduation day too, and so he was fitting in all of this other stuff that he was doing to try to finish out the year. Mind you, it was the COVID year, so they didn't have a lot of in-person things going on other than this graduation ceremony that they wanted to make sure that they put on for the kids and that sort of stuff. So he was doing all this sort of stuff, but we spent the whole day together doing all these sort of things, and filming and doing the interview. And again, too, hopefully we'll get him back on here. And just again, really too bad that we had an issue with getting logged on. And yeah. So again, we'll figure that out. We'll get him on the show here pretty soon and talk all about that program and all that sort of stuff that he's got going on with his program and everything there. All right. Oh, looks like we saw, yeah, there we go. I'm going to throw Joe. See, Joe got in there too. I'm sorry, I'm trying to catch up with everybody here real quick here. Sorry for being quiet for a moment. I get to talking about all this sort of stuff, and then I got to go through here and catch up with what everybody's talking about. Sorry. But I see Joe joined in the conversation right there. Awesome. And Jay did put a link to our video with Mr. List in the comments section there. If you're here with us for the comments, you can check that link out there too. And oh, it looks like Darth X, we got you joining in with us too. It's good to see you. Thanks for joining with us. Joe says all starts with our kids, like we're talking about there, about the education and growing. And that's absolutely true. It does. And again, like I said, it's really important that we're teaching them about gardening and really trying to instill that. I mean, I've kind of, as I've talked about, and people have heard about my story, and I've told different times and stuff. I've had kind of plants in my life throughout my life. I've grew, from a very young age, this real fascination with growing things and all of that. But it all really kind of started with like indoor plants and all that. I never got to growing food until I was well older, as an adult. And so when I got to that real kind of like epiphany that I can actually grow my own food as well as I grow my indoor plants, and started on that whole road. I just, it really kind of became more and more important to me that this would be something that I wish I would have learned about more when I was younger. I wish I would have been in more food gardens and learned about food, learned about the importance of food, especially fresh, organic, chemical-free food that we can grow for ourselves in our own spaces, and learning about that from a young age and have that stuff sort of instilled in me from a young age. I may have had a fascination for plants and growing things. I just missed out on that part of things that I had to catch up on later on in life. So I think that's one of the great things about gardening education programs, is being able to show kids at a young age, where their food comes from, how it grows. And one of the things I think when I was early on growing some of my very first gardens, I remember watching a TEDx talk by a man named Ron Finley. And he said something that's just constantly always stuck with me, and I refer to it all the time, is that kids who grow tomatoes eat tomatoes. And you can change tomatoes with anything. Kids who grow carrots eat carrots. Kids who grow peas eat peas. And it's, it's that sort of idea, is that, and that's the truth, that you get kids involved with gardening and growing their own food from a young age. They are going to appreciate those things even more, and be those kids who aren't so afraid of the vegetables when they show up on the plate when you're young, as I remember I was. And I know that was probably one of the big parts of that situation of why I was such a picky eater, especially when it came to vegetables and things like that, when I was young. Um, and why I would refuse a lot of stuff, and thought of things as strange. I mean, we've all seen kids. I was one of those kids. We've all seen kids. We might even have kids of that sort of situation where, it's just impossible to feed them certain things. But I guarantee that situation changes when your kid's out in the garden growing those things, and then they're bringing those things to their plate themselves, that they've participated in the growing process. And then, then they're gonna, I know I probably would have been eating those things. I wouldn't have been looking at them like they're strange green things on my plate. So I firmly believe that, and I really, really do. And I think those parts of uh, growing and garden education is really important from a young age. I also really, again, like I said, I found to be one of the more uh, uh, fascinating parts of the conversation. And what I learned the most from that visit I did with Steve List at the Sylmar Ag department there was how that carries on into teaching kids in their teenage years, as they're approaching or going through high school and approaching adult life and out of high school, is that carry that garden education to teaching them about the industries that are involved with our food production in all sorts of different aspects, and even down to like what I was talking about with wine, um, that there's all these really great industries that you can find careers in. So not only do you learn about growing food and the importance of food, where it comes from, growing it yourself, but carry that education throughout their whole education experience. And when they leave high school, leave with a great understanding of all of the different types of really cool careers that they can have in these industries. Joe says he had to go. All right. Yes, actually, we are hitting about that time for us here as well, too. Oh, yeah, look at that. Jay put in a link to that TEDx talk with Ron Finley. Really a great talk about some of these sort of things. And he takes it more into food deserts and situations that they see in larger cities, like where he lives in Los Angeles, and talks about his struggle with the city to allow him to use unused city spaces. And that's just basically what they would call your I think your carport spaces, or your they're the ones that are kind of like on the other side of the sidewalk. I don't have one on my side of the street here, but they do on the strip of cross from me on the other side. And you see these spaces. And in fact, Kay Cottrell, who's been a guest on our show too, she had such a great space like this in her urban garden space that she had when she was living in Los Angeles, when I got to visit her too. So she really incorporated and used that space really well. But where he lived in the city, there was a lot of pushback for a while for him to use that space to grow food in. And we're heavy advocates of that here on the Urban Gardener channel. That's what we're all about. Urban gardening, small space gardening, growing in the city, those sort of things, using unused spaces like what we do here with our alleyway spaces. These are spaces that the city isn't using. They're just strips of land that are just there, and basically wasting away. If if there's a person with the energy to put into it to start growing food and then take it to the next level to what Ron Finley does, and he talks about in that TEDx talk, is teaching those folks in his neighborhood about growing food in these food desert places of larger cities. So, I mean, a really great story. I really hope someday maybe we can get Ron on the show and be able to talk all about that story with him someday. I think that would be really, really great. It'd be really, really fun. But again, too, he's also taking that garden education thing to a whole nother level as well, too, in the larger cities, taking that to teaching inner city folks who are in need of those sort of things, especially at-risk teens, at-risk young adults. He works a lot with those folks in those areas to be able to, teach them about growing and gardening. Another group of people that can really use outreach, can really use help when it comes to different things, and really an overall outlook on life. And again, there's no better place to change your outlook on life, to change the way you see and feel about things, than spending time in a garden space. I truly believe that as well, too. And there's, by inviting people who can use it the most. Again, like I said, at-risk youth, at-risk young adults, older adults, even, anybody in a situation where they could use kind of a reframing, another way to look at how they're seeing things and doing things in life. Find a garden space, find some gardeners, especially those out there, find some community gardens where there's people who would definitely love to bring you in and teach you about growing, and nothing like a garden space to really kind of make us think about things in all sorts of different aspects. And we've kind of touched on that a bit here too in our conversation, is all these different aspects of how really kind of important gardening can be. And I truly believe that gardening has played a very important role in my life and in my story. I know it plays a huge role in millions and millions of people out there and their lives, whether it's growing our food, whether it's just having a great, serene, beautiful space around us by doing decorative gardening, or whether we just like growing flowers. It doesn't really matter. Growing things and participating in that part of life I think is something that's kind of magical, and just kind of changes kind of who we are in a way when we really, really attach ourselves to these sort of activities. All right. Oh, and he put a link to Kate Cottrell as well, too. Yes. Here, Connie says, Kate Cottrell is one brave lady. She moved and started over and is making it work. I admire her. Absolutely. I just was on a Zoom meeting with Kay and a few other content creators, and one especially, hopefully we'll get on our show here soon. A few of them we've already had on our show, like Gardner Scott and Black Gumbo, Scott Head, a few other people too that we've had on the show and the channel as well too. So it was a really fun, kind of cool little get together kind of Zoom meeting thing where we were talking for Ivy Organic, and I saw Kay, and we were talking about that. And I wanted to make sure that I let her know how much that she's really, like I said, she's really like Connie says, a one brave lady to be able to do what she did. And she's really, again, another important person. There's so many important people in my gardening adventure, my garden story, and Kay is one of those people. And I had to make sure I let her know just a few days ago too. So it was great to see her be able to say that. And it was all really awesome to also be able to have her on our show this year too. It took a little while. We had a hard time kind of connecting and making a date work, but we finally got it worked out and we got her on the show too. So if you didn't get a chance to check out that interview, I encourage you to go back and check that out. But Connie is absolutely right. She's really brave. She took a, from a personal life situation that changed for her, and especially in, uh, how do you frame it? But her channel's called Late Bloomer. She came to gardening and growing and all that at a later age. Let's just say that, and to be at that later age and have this kind of life change happen, and have to move from this really beautiful. I mean, she really was, her small space, front yard utilization of space in her gardens was just amazing. Her So to have to go from that sort of space and then move across the country to Tennessee, um, and start all over, but now in kind of a bigger space and kind of building this kind of larger garden space and doing all this sort of stuff all over and starting over and doing all this stuff. It's really, really awesome to kind of follow along with her and see how well she's been doing over these last few years and making that change happen. And she really goes at it really hard and everything too. And I just really, really do admire her a lot. So again, thanks for bringing that up, Comedy. Kay is really just a great inspiration. All right. Well, I'm going to do this just real quick, and then we'll come back here in just a moment, and we'll kind of, if you got any questions or comments or anything like that that you'd like to get in with here real quick before we close out the show, make sure you jump into our comment section real quick there, and then we'll be back in just a moment here. And Let's Get Growing is sponsored by IV Organic.
Hi, my name is Charles Malky, biologist and plant expert with Ivory Organics, where we grow cool plants, and author, Saving the World with the Home Garden. Ivory Organic 3-in-1 Plant Guard has 7 natural oils that protect your plants, not just from the summer heat as well as winter cold, but also protects your plants from damaging insects and rodents. The oils in the product include castor, cinnamon, clove, garlic, peppermint, rosemary, and spearmint. These oils are natural insect and rodent repellent oils, which are encapsulated by the base powder, offering your plants months of protection at a time. 1 application per year will suffice for protection against damaging summer sunburn and winter sun scald, but if the target is pests, application as much as 2 to 3 times a year may be necessary.
Hey gardeners, thanks for tuning in to our show today. We'll be right back at it here in just a moment. I just wanted to take a second here to highlight our regular videos and features here on the Urban Gardener channel. Our weekly garden journals, and our incredible featured visits. All right. There we are. Again, too, I want to thank all of you so much for joining along with us here for today's show. And again, too bad we missed out on our conversation with our friend Steve. Just really kind of unfortunate reality of a live television program, or I guess not television, this is online, but a live program to where, technical issues can cause this sort of situation. And I guess it would make sense that we get one more of these as we're closing out our 2023 Let's Get Growing season. We've had an amazing year on the show, and it's just been really awesome to be able to share this show and share this experience with all of you, and to have all of you continue to join with us here each and every week. It's just been really awesome, and just really great. And and a real quick shout out to everybody, to Rob for joining with us there, as well as Connie too. It's really great to see you as well joining with us. And of course, again, but another big huge shout out to our moderator Jay, joining with us and moderating our comment section here, and putting in all those awesome links to all the different things that we're talking about. And again too, it's just been one of the really great things when it comes to this show and in our program, is this small little weekend community that we've gotten to build up and have here each and every weekend. Right now we're just a little community. This was really what the goal was just to make sure that we're consistent and putting on a good show throughout this growing year. And I think for a first year, we had a lot of really great successes, and especially in all of the awesome guests that we've gotten to talk with all throughout this year. We'll talk more about that coming up in this next week's show. And it looks like too, I want to make sure we give a shout out here. Joining with us real quick here is Brampton Gardner. Good to see you. Hello to you as well. And as we're kind of closing out and talking about here today, I just really want to encourage all of you who are watching with me right now at this moment. And again, to anybody who's watching on the replay, as we mentioned at the beginning of the show, be sure to come and join with us for our live show this next week, as it will be our last live show of the 2023 year. And we're going to kind of do a year in review, and it'd be great to have you all join with me live, so I can talk with you and share with you about not only what we had was a really great year. Again, like I said, we had all these really wonderful guests. Ultimately, our goal will be next year to grow the show and grow our audience, and make sure that more and more people are getting to see and participate in this great gardening conversation that we're having here each and every Saturday. And as I say, we're going to be talking about in 2024, the weekends, we'll be talking about all sorts of really cool things about this next year as well, this next week. So be sure to join with us live. I really hope to get to see everybody there as well too. And it'll be, like I said, I think a really great year. And that's kind of what I talked about too at the beginning of the show. It was a really good year this last year, and it was really nice to have, because we've had some really kind of not so good years in previous seasons not too long ago. And so it's really kind of great to be able to start having some really good years and look forward to some really great things in our upcoming growing seasons. So yeah, definitely looking forward to that. And again, so if you are here real quick here, be sure to hit the thumbs up button and hit that like button there too before you head out, and we all head out here. Hit the subscribe button if you haven't subscribed to the channel, and of course be sure to share. Catch up with us also at our website, www.letsgetgrowing.live. And also, real quick here, as we're closing out as well, I want to make sure that I'm inviting all of you to join with us in our Urban Gardener gardening community at the Let's Get Growing gardening group on Facebook. This is a great place for you to be able to share your gardens with me and the rest of the gardening community here on the Urban Gardener channel. We'd love to see what you have, especially me. I always say, I get to share what I'm doing here. It's why we have the gardening group, is so you can share what you've got growing in your gardens. And be really, really awesome to see what you have growing. So be sure to go check that out, and all of the links down below in the description. And again, too, we did miss our conversation with our guest today, Mr. Steve Liss at Ask Liss. He has a really cool Instagram, and there's a link right down below in the description as well. Go catch up with him there as well, and hopefully we'll see him on the show here coming up real soon. But again, it's just been a really great week. We ended up having a really great, fun conversation anyways, which we always do here on the Let's Get Growing show. And, really great time. I'm really glad to got to see all of you. Be sure, like I said, join with us next week. So from all of us here at Let's Get Growing, we'll see you all next Saturday.